Number 11 asks us to simplify the square root of 2400. Remember, do not just put this in your calculator and give me a decimal. I want you to simplify the radical. To simplify the radical, I'm going to do the square root of 2400. Then I'm going to think, what two numbers can I multiply together to get the square root of 2400? Well, I know that it ends with two zeros, so I can say 100 times 24. Then from there, 24 can be 12 and 2. 12 can be 2 and 6. And 6 can be 3 and 2. 10 and 10 will give me 100. This gives me a pair right here, so I can stop right there. If I wanted to, I could also do 5 and 2 and 5 and 2. But I've already got my pair, so I'll go ahead and circle my pair. I have another pair here. I have a 3 and a 2 left, but those do not create a pair. So I'm going to pull out a pair and pull him on the outside, so I get 10. I've got a pair of 2s, so multiplied by that pair of 2s. And then under the square root, I will multiply my ends back together. 3 times 2 will give me 6. So then when I multiply 10 and 2 together, this is the same as saying 10 times 2 times the square root of 6. So when I multiply 10 and 2 together, I get 20 square root 6. I recommend that every time you do one of these problems, you'd say, okay, if I had the square root of 2400, that gave me this number here. Now I'm going to double check my work. These numbers match. 20 root 6 and the square root of 2400 are the same. When we simplify, it's going to keep the same answer. It's just the simplified version, so these answers should work. If for some reason you get an answer that does not match the original, just try again. Now, it tells me if AB equals 13 centimeters, what is the perimeter of regular polygon ABCDE? So, a couple things that we need to notice. If it tells me it's regular, regular means that all the sides are congruent and all the angles are congruent. So that's going to help us out. If they tell us that one side is 13 and that it's regular, that means that all the sides are going to be 13. So we're going to be multiplying 13 by the number of sides. To find out how many sides we have, we will count A, B, C, D, E. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 vertices, which also means it'll have 5 sides. So all I need to do is multiply 13 times 5, which is going to give me 65. So the perimeter is 65. Again, perimeter means the distance around. So if I had a figure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was horribly drawn. But if we pretend like it's regular and all the sides are congruent, I could say this is 13, this is 13, this one here is 13, 13, and 13. If I add all those 13s together, 5 13s, or I multiply 13 by 5, that will give me 65, which is the distance around the whole figure. Number 13 says, if angle 5 and angle 6 are supplementary, and angle 5, the measure of angle 5 is 51 degrees, then the measure of angle 6 is what? The key word here is supplementary. So, remember, if you go to the doctor, they give you a supplement, makes you sleepy, you go to sleep, then you're laying on your bed and you're 180 degrees. Supplementary means when you add the angles together, it'll be 180 degrees. So if I know that the measure of angle 5 is 51 degrees, and I'm trying to find the measure of angle 6, I'll call that x. When I add those together, they must be 180. So I can do 180 minus 51 to get 129 degrees being the measure of angle 6. This is a little degree symbol, but I'll write it so we can see it a little better. Number 14 says to find the value of x, then find the measure of angle FGH. We're not just going to stop once we find x, we need to plug it back in. So here I have two lines that intersect at point G. Make sure you're following along on your page because it might be hard to see these numbers on the camera. If I have two lines that intersect, that means they're going to create vertical angles, because remember, if this is a line and this, let's say, imagine this was 25 degrees, we would do 180 minus 25 to get, this would be 155, and if this is 155 and the whole line is 180, then over here would have to be 25 again. So our vertical angles will be congruent all the time. Side note, if I have a line like this, and then I have two segments coming off of it, these are not vertical angles. Vertical angles must be two straight lines going through. Do we see how this is one straight line and two segments? That is not the same. So it has to be two lines. So this one is no. I'm just going to write no. So these are vertical angles and they are congruent. If they are congruent, that means they have the same measure. And if they have the same measure, that means we can set these equal to each other because they have to be the same. So I can say 3x plus 5 equals 8x minus 45. They have to be the same, so they're equal to each other. Then from there, I can solve for x. I'll subtract 3x from both sides to get 5 equals 5x minus 45. I'll add 45 to both sides to get 50 equals 5x. Divide by 5 on both sides, and I get that x equals 10. That's part 1. Now I'm told to find the measure of FGH. So angle FGH is this angle right here. So all I'm going to do is plug it in. The measure of angle FGH equals 8 times 10 minus 45. So this becomes the measure of angle FGH equals 80 minus 45, or the measure of angle FGH equals 35 degrees. So these are the two answers for that question there.